David, thank you so much for joining me today. You offer such a unique service and experience for our students, and I just want to introduce you to the App Academy community and have you tell us a little bit more about what you do here. So, um, just kind of give us the long short, who you are, how you got into what you do, and we'll start there.
Sure, my pleasure. First of all, I'm my name is David Young. I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I also have a master's degree in public health, so I come from sort of a community-based public health perspective in the work that I do. I've been in private practice for many, many years, but I've also worked as an administrator, executive for various nonprofit organizations for a number of years in the for-profit sector as well. And I've also been a county behavioral health director. So I was kind of focusing more on my consulting business and my private practice, and I received a call from someone who was recruiting for App Academy, and I took a look at what you guys were doing. I thought it'd be very interesting and unusual, and I think quite unique for a boot camp program to have this kind of resource. And I think it speaks to App Academy's innovation and really looking ahead in the future. It's not the most common thing among tech companies to have psychologists or mental health professionals on board. It's common in some other organizations because they have large EAP, employee assistance programs, and they'll tend to work a little bit more with HR. Whereas some of the psychologists in some of the leading tech companies, they're actually working with executives to work on prevention and how to keep their employees happy and healthy and coping with various mental health challenges that might be coming along. It was especially, I think, relevant this past year with COVID. The number of mental health concerns among employees just has gone sky high. And then, of course, with college students, we're talking about 80%, over 80% of college students had anxiety or depression or loneliness impact their ability to perform academically. And so all that, of course, started happening after I was hired at App Academy. And so I'm sure our students have gone through some of the similar challenges.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about kind of your role in the student experience.
Sure. I do a number of things. The title is called Manager for Mental Health Design and Training. And so that speaks to a broad spectrum of things. I'd say partly because of my background, but I think the vision that our founder and our leadership had was to develop structures and systems that help support the students through their intensive boot camp experience, but also enhance the skills, the resources, and the capabilities of the staff to be able to support students in that. So one of the things I do is I do one-on-one counseling or coaching with our students. It's not really mental health therapy because we don't have the resources for that. I'm a department of one,
Right.
but sometimes it's helpful to be able to talk to somebody who has my experience and background to sort of assess what's going on, see if there's some coaching or some skills building that could be helpful in a real brief period of time. And then, of course, if necessary, try to help connect people to resources in the community or with a private therapist through their insurance and things like that. So it's just making sure that people aren't left without some kind of support or safety net if they're struggling to where they're not even able to move forward with the program. I also do workshops and trainings, both with students directly, but also with the staff, the instructors and coaches to be able to help support their skills and being able to be there more for students, because most of our instructors are excellent technical people. Actually, many of our coaches have mental health or psychology backgrounds, and so there's a lot of good skill sets just already within App Academy. But sometimes it's helpful to have someone with a little more experience and working with kind of broader ranges of people and more serious types of disorders to consult with them about how best to support somebody.
Right. And this is already I mean, a boot camp is a big undertaking. It's especially for our full-time students. you're really immersed in this program for any length of time. So why is it so important? Obviously, we know how important mental health is just in our day-to-day life, but why specifically for these students here at App Academy is focusing on this so important?
Certainly, that's a good question. I think many people really appreciate the opportunity to be able to learn the skills that they would need to become a software engineer in a very brief period of time without going through 4 years of college for a computer science degree or something like that. And so they're intellectually and emotionally prepared for that intensity. But if they haven't done anything like that in their past, gone through an intensive program like that, and most people haven't, then it kind of takes them by surprise, I think. So even if they had, many of our students already have BAs, so they've been through college, so they understand study skills and how to manage their time and all that, but not as intensive as learning almost 3 or 4 years worth of material in a 16 or 24-week period. And so it's the idea that it's, 5-6 days a week, could be 15, 16 hours a day. We try to help people make sure they take time for managing their stress, for taking care of their lives, having some family time. We teach mindfulness, things like that, stress management, but you can't get away from how intensive that period of focus of a study will be. And so I think for a lot of folks, it takes them by surprise.
Absolutely.
And that's in the best case scenario. If you were struggling to begin with anxiety or with a bit of depression, but you're doing okay, but just kind of a little bit on the edge, then you enter an intensive program like this, then that could really be what takes you over the edge. So it's helpful to have some coaching to get you back on track.
And not to mention, a lot of our students are already a few years into their career and they're looking to make a change.
Yeah.
But there's still life that happens outside of this boot camp and outside of work. So just having a resource there is so amazing.
Exactly.
Just want to talk about, obviously our goal here at App Academy is to get folks jobs in the tech industry. So let's talk about kind of mental health in tech. It's a huge conversation that's happening right now as the industry at large is sort of ramping up diversity and inclusion, and just really trying to address this issue overall. What are some kind of trends that you're seeing in the industry, and why does a role like yours, is it so important for job seekers and people already in the industry? I know you mentioned too when we were talking offline that there are some companies in tech that are really leading the charge here. So what could we look to them for, as examples? So those probably about a 4-part question, but just want to look at
they're different part. I was really impressed to see some of my colleagues in some of the tech companies. I wouldn't say it's prevalent as it might be, say, in manufacturing or healthcare or other industries. But I think both from a kind of human resources as well as a financial reason, some of these companies are having to start to pay attention to the mental health status of their employees. It started to impact their bottom line as far as productivity, absenteeism, people being able to communicate and resolve conflicts in the workplace. All these things are things that get picked up, when you're not taking care of your people. So there's companies that have really kind of been taking the charge or leading the charge. Facebook very openly talks about their mental health resources. They actually even have a program where executives or leadership within the company talk about some of their mental health struggles. And so that's really about trying to destigmatize and help folks say that it's okay to recognize when you're struggling and to ask for help and get help, because that's part of what this organization is doing to support you. I have a colleague that I know at Google, who works for Google and YouTube and meets with executives who develop programs. So obviously they'll work closely with HR, but these are programs that are beyond just HR, getting people to an EAP resource. These are where they actually think about how they want to set up schedules, where they set deadlines, how they structure projects. So they're also addressing people's work-life balance, but also encourage them to take days off when they need to and be able to take care of their mental health. So these are some exciting things to see that people are paying attention to that. It's not all about just mental health treatment. It's really about designing an organization that isn't burning people out. And as many of us know, that the tech industry is notorious for burning people out.
Right.
And they're starting to pay the price on that by having so much turnover. So I think as they start being more innovative about how to address that. The reason why I think we're on the leading edge at bootcamp, because I hope I can find someone else at a bootcamp who's doing this kind of thing, but I haven't heard of such a thing. And I think if you can teach people some of the skills to be able to cope with stress, manage anxiety, retain a work-life balance, learn mindfulness training, then they'll be better suited, just as they would be better suited by knowing the latest coding languages, that they'd be able to be more suited to survive and thrive once they get into the workforce.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and you see a lot of these tech companies enacting things like mental health days, or at the very least, a non-discretionary kind of uncapped paid time off for people to just live their lives. Um, this has all been so great, David, and we're so thankful to have you on board and to be a resource for our students. Just before we let you go, is there any advice that you have to, any prospective students or people who are considering applying to App Academy or making this change into the tech industry, just to kind of keep themselves in check and keep their mental health in mind as they're going through this process?
Certainly, I'd say, regardless if you believe App Academy is going to be the best fit for you and what your goals are as a potential applicant, to keep practicing the things you need to do to keep your mental health in balance. And so certainly if you have any symptoms of depression, anxiety, substance use, drinking too much, things like that, then trying to address that certainly before you enter a program like this, because you will be challenged. That said, one of our goals is, as I think you mentioned, to diversify our student body. That's going to include people who are under other stresses, such as financial stresses with family. We know people of color and low-income folks probably had a lot more to have to deal with around the COVID because they lost loved ones or lost jobs or under other kinds of pressures. And so trying to get as healthy as you can before you start something like this, as well as developing as many skills as you can. Just recently kind of went through our first pass of the behavioral survey, and we're finding that a good quarter of our 20%, 20 to 25% of our students are struggling with some of these issues before even entering App Academy. Most people are able to kind of grit it out and just kind of push through it. But things could be a lot easier if you had some of these skills right in the beginning. So one of the things I'm doing is focusing on training people on some of those early in their tenure at App Academy. The other thing is being open-minded, not waiting until you've already failed several assessments or on the very edge of having to drop out or be deferred, and ask for help and seek that help early on. I think we're trying to create a culture at App Academy that is open-minded, saying there's no stigma or negative judgment about asking for help. In fact, that you can be in trouble if you don't ask for help, and start getting some support right away. So that's why we're here. That's the resources that are available to people, and we look forward to helping people become software engineers and getting through this program.
You said it, took the words right out of my mouth. David, thank you so much for sitting with me today, and hopefully, we will have some new students coming down the pipeline that can really benefit from your expertise and your wealth of mental health knowledge and treatment. So thank you so
Thank you.
much.